within the heart of the Dream Cloud Mountains, where even time seemed to lose its meaning. A silent power stirred beneath a sea of drifting white mist. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Hanli sat alone within the guest pavilion, idly turning the wood spirit bead between his fingers. Its faint luster flickered like a living thing beneath his touch. Just as he was about to put it away with the other two treasures, a child's voice rang out without warning. Crisp and clear in the quiet air. "Fellow Taoist Han, are you truly intending to keep that bead?" Hanli paused, his hand stilled, and a faint crease formed between his brows. "Why do you ask? Is there something wrong with this spirit-gathering bead?" A soft chuckle followed. Hey, there's nothing wrong with the bead itself. But surely you're aware that spirit-gathering beads are inherently flawed treasures. Hanli's gaze sharpened, though he said nothing, allowing the voice to continue. "If you cultivate with it, your magic power and cultivation base will indeed grow at an astonishing pace. However," the child's tone turned faintly mocking, "once you reach a bottleneck, you'll come to understand its true flaw. For high-grade cultivators, breaking through becomes many times more difficult than it would for others." Because the voice continued unhurried and deliberate, while the bead enhances your absorption of spiritual qi, it dulls your sensitivity to the other forms of qi. For those below the nascent soul stage, this drawback is barely noticeable. But for someone like you, someone who must perceive the myriad forms of the world's origin, qi to advance this bead is more burden than boon. There was a brief pause before the child added almost casually, "That is why in the spirit realm, such beads are reserved for mediocre cultivators of lesser aptitude. No true expert would ever rely on one." Hanli's expression did not change, though a flicker of thought passed through his eyes. "So, you're saying this treasure is useless to me?" "Not entirely." The child's tone shifted, tinged with intrigue. "If you can gather several rare wood-attributed materials, you can refine it into a different treasure, the wood birth bead. It won't accelerate your cultivation, but once fully refined, it will grant you a single use of the immortal body ability." Hanli's composure faltered for the first time. Immortal body. The word struck him like a distant echo of a long-held dream. That ability. He had only ever seen it in terrifying existences, ancient demon beasts, elder devils, and corrupted corpses twisted by devilish transformation. Never had he heard of a human cultivator attaining it. "That's right," the child said with a light laugh. "Each wood birth bead allows you to activate the immortal body once. Even if your head is severed or your body cleaved in two, you will recover completely." Hanli inhaled slowly, the weight of those words settling into him. "Is that truly so? But if it can only be used once, doesn't that make it nothing more than a disposable treasure?" The child snorted, faintly displeased. "A single chance to defy death and you still sound dissatisfied, humph. Besides, the materials required are exceedingly rare in the human world, and whether you can even refine it successfully, that remains to be seen." Hanli smiled faintly, unbothered. "What materials do I need? I've collected quite a number of wood-attributed items over the years." "I can give you the list," the child replied bluntly, "but if you want the refinement method as well, you'll have to offer something in return." "Of course." Hanli's smile deepened slightly. "Name your price, fellow Taoist endless sky." Rather than discomfort, the demand brought him ease. Had the endless sky beast offered such knowledge freely, Hanli would have grown wary instead. After all, whatever camaraderie they had built during the lightning tribulation was shallow at best. Friendship that was far too generous a word. Hanli trusted neither fate nor coincidence, only balance. The endless sky beast remained bound within the heaven-void cauldron. Its cooperation stemmed from necessity, not goodwill. "I've only just reached the metamorphosis stage," the child said, his tone turning practical. "I require certain medicinal ingredients to stabilize my cultivation. I trust that won't be difficult for you, Brother Han." "No trouble at all," Hanli replied without hesitation. "Good. When you return to your cave abode, I'll provide everything: the materials list, the refinement method, and the medicines I require. Agreed. Han Li nodded, then carefully placed the wood spirit bead back into its wooden box. With a flick of his sleeve, all three treasures vanished into his storage pouch. Then, without warning, a cold glint flashed through his eyes. "Fellow Taoist Endless Sky," he said slowly, "do you think the ghost spirit sect knew about this bead's flaw?" "That's difficult to say," the child replied after a moment's thought. "From what I understand, this bead was discarded by ancient cultivators long ago. Its flaw may not have been passed down, unless a nascent soul cultivator specializing in wood techniques had used it before. No one would detect anything unusual just by examining it." A brief pause. "Are you suspecting those three are trying to prevent you from reaching the deity transformation stage?" Han Li stroked his chin, eyes lowered in thought. "At first, yes. But the more I considered it, the less sense it made." He began to pace slowly, his footsteps soft against the stone floor. "Even if I fail to reach that stage, I remain a late nascent soul cultivator, the strongest in the Heavenly South region. Would they really risk provoking me over something like this? If I discovered the truth in anger, I could wipe out the ghost spirit sect entirely." He stopped, gaze distant. "No, there's something deeper at play." His voice grew colder, more measured. "The one pulling the strings is most likely someone from the Heavenly South region itself. But why would they fear my ascension? Even without reaching deity transformation, no one here can rival me." A faint, chilling smile touched his lips. "The only difference is time. Without that breakthrough, my lifespan ends at around 1,000 years. And with my death, the dominance of the drifting cloud sect fades with it." His eyes sharpened. "Only a handful of sects would benefit from that. The flowing mind sect, the harmonious bond sect, or the high zenith sect, or perhaps all three working together." The child fell silent, visibly stunned. After a long moment, he let out a dry laugh. "When you put it like that, everything becomes much clearer. So you suspect the other three great cultivators, perhaps?" Han Li resumed walking, then looked upward as if gazing through the ceiling into something unseen. "But it's still speculation." "It's simple enough," the child said lightly. "Capture one of them. Search their soul." A sharp glint flashed in Han Li's eyes, but just as quickly it faded. "That would be easy," he admitted. "But it's not the point." He shook his head. "Without evidence, acting against them would make me the enemy of all. Fear and respect are fragile things. Abuse them and they turn into resentment." His voice turned quiet yet heavy with certainty. "And if someone were to use that against me, even I could not stand against the entire cultivation world of the Heavenly South region." The child scoffed. "You're far too cautious, brat. In the spirit realm, if someone dared plot against me like this, heh. Well, do as you wish. Just don't get yourself killed." Han Li allowed himself a faint smile. "Rest assured, now that I know someone is scheming against me, I'll be careful." He paused, then added calmly, "For now, I'll pretend ignorance. If they stop here, I'll let it pass. But if they act again—" His voice dropped cold and merciless. "Then I'll make sure they understand what it means to wish for death." The child merely chuckled, offering no reply. After lingering in the pavilion for a while longer, Han Li finally stepped outside. His gaze drifted toward a nearby structure, and his brows knit slightly. Han Yunji's visit he could understand. But donghua, his expression grew faintly distant. They were not on good terms. Though undeniably beautiful, she had left behind an impression he found difficult to forget, and not a pleasant one. Yet something else lingered in his thoughts. He had once heard that after reaching the core formation stage, donghua had sent people searching for him. Why? Han Li stood there for a moment, hesitation flickering across his face. Then, with a quiet exhale, he made his way toward the pavilion. Inside, two women awaited him in silence. One sat calmly in a chair, dressed in soft yellow robes, her features gentle and warm, like spring sunlight. The other stood nearby, a woman in white, her beauty striking almost dangerously so. There was a fragile air about her, yet that very fragility stirred an instinctive urge to protect. deepening her allure. At his arrival, both women turned. Hanley stepped forward, a faint smile gracing his lips. "I must admit, I'm surprised to see the two of you here, fellow Taoists. It's been many years, yet seeing you now brings back quite a few memories." At the sight of him, a flicker of joy lit up the eyes of the yellow-robed woman. She rose hastily but seemed momentarily unsure of herself. "Brother Han, no. Senior Han," she stammered softly, her voice tinged with both excitement and restraint. "I hope my visit hasn't caused you any inconvenience." As for the white-robed donghua, her crimson lips parted ever so slightly, as if words hovered on the verge of being spoken, yet in the end she remained silent. The expression on her face was a delicate tangle of contradictions, a flicker of joy, a trace of excitement, and beneath it all a faint lingering distance, even a hint of resentment. "I'm very glad to see you here, fellow Taoist Han." "It's no trouble at all," Han Li said with a gentle smile. "And there's no need for such formality, no senior this or that. Just call me Big Brother Han. You've already reached the mid-core formation stage, haven't you? It seems it won't be long before you step into the late core formation stage." A soft blush crept across the yellow-robed woman's cheeks. She lowered her gaze slightly, nodding with unconcealed delight. "We came to thank you, Big Brother Han, for sparing my life not once but twice," Han Yunji said softly, her voice brimming with sincerity. "If it had been anyone else in your place, I would have died long ago." Hanley paused for a heartbeat, then burst into warm laughter. "So you've recovered your memories of the trial by blood and fire, and you know what happened afterward?" Unknowingly, he had already begun to treat her like a younger sister, and she in turn regarded him as an elder brother. In just a few exchanged sentences, she had forgotten his lofty status entirely, speaking to him with an easy familiarity as though nothing had ever changed between them. As their conversation deepened, they reminisced about the Great South meeting and the trial by blood and fire. A quiet nostalgia settled over them both. Back then, neither could have imagined that 2 or 3 centuries later they would stand where they stood now. In those days, even Foundation establishment cultivators had seemed like distant, untouchable figures. Suddenly, something seemed to occur to Han Yunji. Her eyes brightened, and she turned toward Dong Xuana with a smile. "Oh, right. During the ceremony, I met this big sister Dong. I heard she once cultivated in the same sect as you, Big Brother Han. She said she had something she wished to discuss with you." Only then did Han Li turn his gaze toward Dong Xuana, his expression returning to calm indifference. "It's true we both once cultivated in Yellow Maple Valley, but it seems your cultivation hasn't progressed at all since the last time we met, fellow Taoist Dong." The words fell lightly, but Dong Xuana's face flushed instantly, her teeth clenched, anger flashing in her eyes. "That's because of you," she snapped. Hanley blinked, momentarily taken aback. Han Yunji, too, stared in confusion. Hanley quickly regained his composure, though displeasure flickered across his face. His tone cooled. "What do you mean by that, fairy Dong? How does your stagnant cultivation have anything to do with me? If you hadn't become my inner demon, would I have failed so many breakthroughs?" Dong Xuana's voice trembled with pent-up frustration. "It's because of you that I've been trapped at mid-core formation all these years. Inner demon." Hanley murmured, genuine bewilderment surfacing in his expression. Dong Xuana took a steadying breath, though anger still lingered in her voice. "Back at the Yan clan fortress, I was abducted by Tian Buke and taken to the Harmonious Bond sect. Only then did I learn the truth of my origins. I am a direct descendant of Old Devil Cloudpart." Her gaze hardened. "Before I was even born, he used a secret technique on me, the graceful dream art. It's a cultivation art intertwined with seductive charm techniques. It greatly accelerates cultivation. But the greatest trial lies in confronting one's inner demons." Her lips curled bitterly. "If the trial is easy, then progress comes as naturally as breathing. But if it is difficult—" She paused, her voice dropping. "Then one can be trapped forever. Some have even had their cultivation regress because their inner demons were too strong." A long silence followed. Hanley frowned slightly. Even so, how did I become your inner demon? We've barely crossed paths. How should I know? Donghua snapped. The moment I reached core formation, you appeared in my cultivation as my inner demon. I barely forced my way to mid-core formation with external aid, but since then, I haven't advanced a single step. Her voice grew quieter, tinged with something more complicated. I asked Old Devil Cloudpart about it. He said, "It's likely because you resisted my charm techniques in the past. When I suffered backlash from them, you left too deep an imprint on my heart, and that imprint became my inner demon." Hanli fell silent. Han Yunji too stood there in stunned confusion. After a long while, Han Li finally spoke again. His tone measured, though a cold glint flickered in his eyes. "I heard you once sent people searching for me after reaching core formation. If you had found me, what would you have done?" Donghua hesitated, then answered, her voice faltering slightly. "How else does one deal with an inner demon? Either overcome it through sheer will, or destroy the source." A faint blush spread across her face, softening her sharp features, lending her an even more dangerous allure. "At the time, I intended the latter." Hanli's eyes narrowed at first, but as he absorbed her words, something like realization dawned. A trace of awkwardness crept into his expression. After a brief silence, he said calmly, "I understand why you're here now. You want me to pass on the technique I used so you can overcome your inner demon." Donghua nodded without hesitation. "Yes. I wanted to ask you during the Mulan invasion, but by then you had already reached the nascent soul stage. I didn't dare approach you." "And what makes you think I would help you?" Han Li asked, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Donghua met his gaze, her expression steady despite the flicker of unease in her eyes. "You're the #1 cultivator in the Heavenly South region now. I don't know if you would trouble yourself for someone like me, but if I want even the slightest chance of reaching the nascent soul stage, this is my only path." Hanli studied her for a moment. Then slowly he spoke. "We may not be on good terms, but we were once fellow disciples, and your inner demon did indeed originate from me." His voice softened just slightly. "It won't cost me much to help you. I'll assist you this once." Really, Donghua's eyes lit up disbelief, giving way to relief. "It's a simple matter for me now," Han Li replied evenly. "There's no need for deception. But after this, our paths part. Do not expect any further assistance from me." Her expression faltered, color draining from her face. After a moment, she inclined her head. "I'm already deeply grateful that you're willing to help me even once. I wouldn't dare ask for more." "Good," Hanli nodded. "Rest here for 3 days. After that, I'll return and help you resolve your inner demon." Donghua gave a faint nod, her expression once again distant. After speaking a while longer with Han Yunji, Han Li departed. 5 days later, both women left the Drifting Cloud sect, returning to their respective sects. With Han Li's assistance, Donghua finally shattered the chains of her inner demon. No obstacle remained to hinder her path toward late core formation. As for Han Yunji, she departed with numerous treasures and pills gifted by Han Li, along with a letter addressed to the Grand Elder of the controlling spirit sect. When Han Li descended before his cave abode as a streak of azure light, a woman in flowing white palace robes stood waiting, her smile soft and radiant. As he landed, she spoke gently. "Why did little sister Yunji leave so soon? You could have asked her to stay a few more days." "There was no need," Han Li replied with a faint smile. A few days here was already enough for her. Nangong Wan's eyes curved slightly. "By the way, I've received news about your other companion. That violet spirit woman reached the nascent soul stage several years ago. She's already departed for Great Jin. You likely won't see her for quite some time." Han Li chuckled softly. With her talent, that was only a matter of time. Whether she's here or elsewhere doesn't matter. If fate wills it, we'll meet again. He paused briefly, then added, "In a few days, some refinement materials will arrive. After that, I'll enter seclusion. I intend to reach the peak of late nascent soul as soon as possible and fully master the great development technique. Then I'll fuse the 5 glacial flames with the unbroken cinque devils. Nangonguan nodded, her smile gentle. I was thinking the same about breaking through as well. Hopefully when we emerge, we'll both have succeeded. Hanli laughed. I certainly hope so. But before I enter seclusion, a mischievous glint flickered in his eyes as his gaze drifted over her. You'll have to keep me company through these lonely nights. Nangonguan scoffed lightly, though her cheeks flushed, a delicate shade of red amusement dancing in her eyes. When did you become so smooth-tongued? Hanli threw his head back, laughter ringing across the peaks. This is the first time anyone's ever called me that. Perhaps you're the only one who will ever see this side of me. His laughter echoed far and wide. On another peak, within a quiet cave, abode a young girl, paused mid-reading her jade slip, forgotten in her hand. A soft smile touched her lips. Then gently she lowered her gaze and returned to her reading. Deep within the secret chamber atop the main peak of the Dream Cloud Mountains, everything lay submerged in a boundless sea of white mist. It drifted and coiled like a living veil, thick with restrained power, clear evidence that a formidable restriction had been laid over the entire chamber. At its heart sat a man in silent meditation, legs crossed, his body suffused with a faint azure radiance that pulsed like a distant tide. Around him were 5 pristine jade-like skeletons, each seated in the same posture, eerily still. A layer of greyish-white devilish chi clung to their frames, writhing like pale smoke. Their jaws hung slightly open, and within each skull burned a different flame, black, white, blue, yellow, and green flickering like sinister stars in hollow sockets. At the very center, Hanli sat unmoving, his hands held before his chest, palms nearly touching. Between them hovered a faint, indistinct sphere of violet fire, its glow subdued yet profoundly ominous. Years had passed, how many even he no longer kept count. Without warning, a streak of silver light flashed across the chamber wall. Within the restriction, another azure figure materialized, standing silently at the edge of the room like a shadow given form. Time stretched on. Then at last, Hanli parted his lips. The violet flame between his hands trembled, and in an instant it was drawn into his mouth, collapsing into a thin stream of fire that vanished down his throat. At the same moment, the 5 skeletons snapped their jaws shut. The multicolored flames within them winked out one after another, leaving only hollow darkness behind. The grey-white, devilish chi receded swiftly, peeling away like mist under sunlight, revealing their true forms, now stained in the hues of their respective flames. Only then did Hanli slowly open his eyes. At first they were vacant, clouded, unfocused, as though his consciousness had yet to fully return. It was only after a long while that clarity resurfaced, his pupils sharpening with quiet awareness. His gaze shifted toward the azure figure by the wall. His brows drew together slightly. The figure was none other than the humanoid puppet he had stationed outside his cave abode. Over the years, Hanli had summoned it at intervals, merging it once more with his second nascent soul before sending it back to stand guard. Now that it had appeared here unbidden, something was amiss. A faint ripple of unease stirred within him. The puppet, strengthened by the second nascent soul, possessed power rivaling that of a great cultivator. What could have occurred that even it could not resolve? Without hesitation, Hanli extended his spiritual sense, weaving it into the puppet's consciousness, reconnecting with his second nascent soul. Time passed. 15 minutes later, a peculiar expression surfaced on his face. The puppet, which had stood motionless all this while, suddenly raised an arm. From the storage pouch at its waist, it retrieved an object and extended it toward Hanli with mechanical precision. Hanli accepted it. It was a broken jade talisman, no larger than half a palm. The moment his spiritual power flowed into it, countless tiny crimson characters bloomed across its surface, flickering like embers. Hanli's gaze swept across them briefly, yet in that instant his expression changed, growing thoughtful, grave. Fellow Taoist, endless sky. You've awakened as well, haven't you? He said at last, his voice hoarse and stiff, as though unused for decades. It seems we've been in seclusion for quite some time. A flash of spiritual light shimmered. From within his sleeve, a small cauldron drifted out, hovering before him. Above it, the figure of a child materialized, the endless sky beast, now appearing a few years older than before. Only about 120, perhaps 130 years, the child replied lazily. Hardly worth mentioning. Why are you planning to leave seclusion now? His gaze flicked toward the skeletons. You're at a crucial stage, infusing your glacial flames with the unbroken Cinque Devils. Give it another decade and the refinement will be complete. Wouldn't it be a pity to abandon it now? Hanli shook his head slowly. It's not a major issue. I can resume the process when I return. He lifted the broken talisman slightly, its crimson script still flickering. This is a myriad distance talisman. It carries news from the scattered star seas. I once made an agreement with the heavenly star sages, and it seems Ling Yuling is now in trouble. I cannot ignore this. The heavenly star sages, the child mused. That late nascent soul couple, I examined them before they were already nearing the end of their lifespans. If they're not dead, then they must be close. Otherwise, why would that girl seek your help? Hanli's eyes darkened slightly. The message makes no mention of them. It's likely they've already passed. A faint glimmer of interest surfaced in his gaze. This may also be an opportunity. I've long been intrigued by the Star Palace's divine essence-fused light. Of the methods they left behind for reaching deity transformation, only that one seems viable. His voice grew quieter, more deliberate. During this journey, I may be able to obtain it. The endless sky beast frowned. I've never heard of such a technique in the spirit realm. Likely something devised in this world. Be careful, you're already cultivating many paths. Don't lose sight of the great Tao. I know. Hanli's expression turned solemn. I'll first reach the peak of late nascent soul. Then I'll attempt to break through using my glacial flames. If I succeed, there will be no need for this method. A pause. If I fail, then I have no other choice. The child gave a non-committal shrug. Fair enough. I know other methods, but none would work here. The spiritual qi is too thin. His eyes narrowed slightly as he studied Hanli. Your cultivation. It's grown significantly over the past century. Hanli let out a quiet sigh. Perhaps, but I'm still far from the peak. Even with constant use of pills, I'll need another 50 to 60 years. His gaze drifted distant. If I relied on meditation alone, even a full century might not suffice. For a fleeting moment, he thought of the fuschia cloud pills from that hidden medicine garden. With enough of them, his cultivation would have surged several-fold. But those spirit herbs, long extinct in the outside world. A pity, yet he had not been idle. The mysterious green liquid, he had used it wisely. After setting aside what was needed for pill refinement, the rest had gone toward refining his spirit eyes and nurturing his spirit insects. For over 20 years, he had cleansed his eyes until eventually, the bright side spirit water ceased to have any effect. Still, the transformation had been profound. With spiritual power infused, his gaze could pierce through clouds and illusions, seeing objects 10,000 feet away as if they lay before him. His 6-winged frost centipedes had matured as well, growing a second pair of wings after a century, leaping from 5th grade to 7th grade beasts. With them, he could freeze entire regions into glacial wastelands. Other spirit insects, less promising. The gold-devouring beetles remained dormant, the armored earth dragon content but slow to advance. As for his cultivation, the azure essence sword art, the great development technique. To his own surprise, he had advanced through its later layers with remarkable ease. His spiritual sense had multiplied several-fold, approaching even that of a deity transformation cultivator. And his body, after enduring the agony of the 3rd layer of the bright jade arts, it had become monstrously resilient. Ordinary treasures could no longer harm him. The 9 Gale transformations mastered within years. And then his treasures. The wood birth bead successfully refined and absorbed, granting him a single chance at immortality. The poisonous hooks, the fire dragon pillars, all reforged into formidable weapons. As these thoughts flowed through his mind, Han Li suddenly flicked his sleeve. A black jade vial appeared in his hand. He began to chant. At once the 5 skeletons trembled violently. Grey-white devilish chi surged forth, engulfing them as their forms twisted, transforming into 5 massive ghostly heads, each as large as a carriage wheel. From their gaping maws, devilish flames roared, casting a chilling, hellish glow. Han Li raised a hand, forming a seal. The ghostly heads shrank rapidly, compressing into fist-sized spectres. With a burst of light, the jade vial absorbed them all. Silence returned. Han Li stored the vial, then rose to his feet. With a sweep of his sleeve, the white mist parted. The restriction dissolved like a dream, revealing the heavy stone door beyond. Without a word, Han Li stepped forward. Behind him, the humanoid puppet vanished in a flash of silver light, leaving the chamber empty once more.